Well, hey there, friends of Great Wave. Don Chamberlain here again. The Hydor 450 that I upgraded a while back, about a month ago, I guess, is now hopefully making its new owner real happy somewhere. Uh, didn't last too long, and I was happy to see that. I've had some nibbles on the BiOrb. I just finished upgrading last week, and you can see it sitting over there all boxed up and ready to go. So hopefully it won't be around much longer either. Uh, a while back, I got an email from a lady who had seen one of the Pond Guru's videos. He upgraded a snazzy little hang on the back canister filter, which is kind of a cool idea. A lot of the hang on the back filters that people like to use on smaller tanks are just a little bit of a mess. They don't typically have much space for media, and they tend to come with the uh, carbon packs and other sort of pre-packaged media, if you will, that isn't going to last you very long and mainly serves to give the vendor a nice continuing revenue stream as you have to replace them all the time. Uh, so this was a pretty snazzy little filter, and of course the Pond Guru did his whiz-bang job of upgrading it. I can't even recall now exactly what media he put in it. But she was really taken by that. She had had some experience with other filters and thought that would be just the ticket. Uh, Unfortunately, the particular model he upgraded was only available in the UK, and their voltage is considerably different than ours. I think they run 240 volts at 50 hertz as opposed to 115, 120, 60 here in the States. So that exact unit wasn't really going to be the answer. Uh, I found it as a Sun HBL-801 2 and 3 on Alibaba, and I spent a few fruitless hours trying to communicate with the guy over there to see if I could pick some up and bring them over, because I thought it might be a good product, and since they weren't really readily available, couldn't find anything on Amazon or anything, and that's kind of what I specialize on, stuff you can't find on Amazon or anything. And but anyway, I kind of gave that up with the virus, and God knows how long it'd take to get them, and the fact I wasn't getting any satisfactory answers from them anyway. I kind of gave that up. And then I ran across this. So this is an interesting, I'd never heard of this company. Maybe some of you guys have, the UN Systems. They're out of LA. They get this filter, at least this particular one, and I imagine there are others as well. They have, in this range, they've got the Delta 60, which I got here, specifically because it is a hang-on-the-back canister. And then they have the 120, which I don't believe is a hang-on-the-back version. It looks more like it's kind of the size of a Sun 304 or something like that. And so it's obviously for bigger tanks. So I'm guessing that's more of a conventional canister. It looks a lot like this, except it's more square than this one is kind of a snazzy little oval, I guess. But it's a cool looking little filter. Never seen one quite this color. It's kind of a light gray. Looks like the top has actually got a little, I'm not sure, a little violet or something in it. Really nice looking unit. And I was able to pick this up just a couple blocks from here. Just took on a new dealer here this last week, Aqualabs Aquaria. And they just opened up fairly recently a new shop here in Willow Glen, San Jose, California. And they sell online, so you could definitely check them out. And I'd suggest that they do custom tanks, and they're heavy into aquascaped marine tanks, coral tanks, and so forth. They have some lovely stuff going on down there at their shop. And if you had any questions about that sort of thing, of course they do freshwater too, I'm sure they'd be glad to help you out. And they've got quite a selection of filters and all sorts of good stuff. And anyway, this one caught my eye, and I thought, well, by golly, I'll check this out. We'll upgrade this rascal, and maybe that lady will take an interest in it once we get it ready to go. And if not, someone else might. I think it makes a lot more sense. Really, you have a more, if you want to go with a hang on the back type filter, this really makes more sense. You've got more of a real filter here. And it's pretty versatile because you can see I've kind of got it just loosely configured as I hang on the back. You can see, I hope, the hanger's there, and there's a little spacer down there to keep the thing vertical when it's hanging on the back of your tank. And then these particular set of connectors allow you to put the inlet on here, and it comes with a nice little coarse foam down there, which is cool. We'll definitely keep that. And then you've got a spray bar here for the outlet. And on the other hand, if you want to just set it up as a regular little canister next to or below your tank, well, you've got all these other pieces that you can put it together as an ordinary canister. So now that we've kind of gone over the overview of the thing, we'll tear it apart and start doing an upgrade, and hopefully we'll come up with something that somebody wants here in the not too distant future. So there's 4 clips that hold the cover on, the motor and so forth, and so it should be fairly securely held. I would hope that it would run without any leaks. This handle here you might think was some sort of flow control, but it's not. It's just a little port so you can prime it if you get everything lined up just right. Close and open. Okay, there we go. So basically once you get it in place, you can fill it with water, and once it's filled up, it should take right off. We'll find out before too long. We'll run it for a little while just to make sure, see how it goes and see how it sounds and whatnot before we tear it down and put it up for sale. So here's how it comes from the factory. It's actually kind of cool. They've got all these trays, all 3 of them hang together, so you can just pull it out with a convenient little handle. And with that in there, you can see how the water flows. Basically, the water comes in right here, and then it goes down through the sides here all the way to the bottom. Can't get over here to the outlet side. And then obviously it comes back up through the foam and the media. And actually, this is packed with, I'm not a big fan of this, as you might imagine, this ceramic media, but this rascal has more media in it than I think the Fluval 406 I bought a couple of years ago. I was really surprised. So they do a real nice job. I think we can maybe do a little better, but they do a real nice job, and so we'll see what we can do with this rascal. You got to squeeze these tabs to basically unlock each of the trays. And so I basically just took off the cover, and you can see here that they've got this tray fairly well filled. You could get a few more of those in there, but we're not going to worry about that because we're not going to keep those anyway. I might throw them in a bag and just send them along in case somebody has some use for them, but not exactly what I plan to use. So the whole thing comes apart pretty handily. You can see you've got the 2 trays filled with some halfway decent biomedia, and this bottom tray comes with one of those things that always makes me cringe. It's a little carbon cartridge, and then actually has a pretty decent piece of foam, which looks very much like our medium foam. And of course they got the coarse foam out here on the inlet. Obviously not a whole lot, but then that's as big as the inlet is. So that should help collect the bigger stuff. And I'll compare this. If my medium foam looks finer than this, I'll actually replace this. But if not, we'll just leave that be, and we'll get rid of this rascal and put some decent foam in there, so we don't have to be worrying about replacing that or any of the carbon getting out into the tank and wrecking whatever havoc it might do. So on we go. So while I'm not going to sit down and try to count those pores, that's probably not very well focused trying to get that close, but at any rate, I can't really see any difference between the foam they send with it and my medium foam. So I think I'll keep that. That could very well be the exact same port foam. I'm not sure. But anyway, it looks like a nice piece of foam, so we won't mess with that at all. I'm going to see our fine foam is 1/2 inch thick. I can definitely get one of those in there, and possibly 2 sheets. We'll see how that goes. I'm thinking that on this smaller tank, 2 sheets wouldn't hurt. And you could always obviously take, if you found that was plugging up too soon to suit your fancy, you could obviously take one of them out and just go with one medium and one fine to extend the interval of your cleaning a little bit. So the ceramic media turns out is 370 grams of media, just for reference purposes. And like I say, we'll include that with the unit in case somebody has a use for it. So the space in here with the baskets assembled is right at 3/4 of an inch, if I can hold my hand straight, steady. But I think I can still get 2 layers in there, so we'll do that. And as I say, if the proud new owner doesn't like that, they can always take one out and have a spare. So I take back what I said. It turns out that 2 1/2 inch foams won't fit in there. I suppose I could force it, but I'm not going to. But since I'm able to cut 2 of them out of a 6 1/2 inch piece of foam, and otherwise that piece would go to waste anyways, we'll just ship a spare with this rascal, and there you go. So 1 tray down, 2 to go. So it turns out that 350 grams of biogravel in one of our media bags will just fit in there perfectly. So that's kind of cool, because that means you can get a total of 700 grams, 7/10 of a kilogram in that little rascal, which according to the rules of thumb that we use to figure out nitrate reduction means you should be able to use this on a 10-gallon tank and get your nitrates down very low. And so that's kind of good news. That's not very easy to do. The Fluval 110, I think, will hold possibly as much as a kilogram. So that might be an option if you have a small tank and you want to use a hang-on-the-back filter. But other than that, I'm not aware of any other HOB filter that'll hold that much medium. So that's pretty cool. So I just added 350 grams of biogravel into the media bag, and then I folded it over essentially in half and pulled the drawstring up tight, and then wrapped it around the bag, tied a nice little Boy Scout quality square knot in it, clipped off the leads to the appropriate length, and we're ready to put this rascal back together. And there she is, all ready to go back inside the case, and then we'll have to figure out how it is we're going to test this sucker. So before we put this into operation, I actually need to rinse the media off, so I'm taking it apart again, and we're going to put that in this basket. This is what I'd recommend for media rinsing. This allows you to dump the biohome out of a tray or wherever it is located in your filter, and allows it to spread out a bit, and then you can rinse it off in tank water or other dechlorinated water. Now I've got it located right here in my kitchen in the sink, and I'm going to be using my tap water, but my tap water's been filtered through an activated charcoal filter, so there's no chlorine present. And as long as that's the case, well, you're in good shape. So you can see that allows it to spread out nicely, and we can give it a real good rinse. And as I gather a little more water in there, I'll be able to shake that basket around and hopefully get all of the loose debris that's on the surface from shipping out of there and into the now I've got enough water in here. Yeah, that I can rinse this back and forth quite a bit. And hopefully, once I'm done, it'll be clean as a whistle. So you can see we got a fair bit of the grit out of there. And a couple of pieces fell through the mesh on that. But the rest of it's nice and clean now, so ready to go. So we actually want to do the same thing with the foams to get whatever we can. There might be some residue left over from manufacturing, so we'll give them a nice cleaning here, and then I'll squeeze them out in a sec. And that should do the trick. They're all back together now. So we'll put this rascal, finish putting it together and put all of the intake and outlet pipes in place. And I've got a little bucket actually set up with some water from my koi quarantine tank in there. And we're going to try to do sort of a fishless cycle on this. So we'll do some water testing here in a bit, see what we got to start with, and then test that periodically. See what happens as we add some food to the tank and see if that will generate some ammonia for us. So my jerry-rig test setup here holds 15 liters of water. A little more than this filter would really be suitable for if I was looking to get complete nitrate reduction, but we'll see how well it'll do. So the setup was really pretty simple. Everything kind of pushes together, and then you've got the nuts there to tighten the fittings connections. And looking at that one, it doesn't look like I have it pushed all the way in, so we'll do that before we fire it up. And then the next step is I've removed the opening here, so I'll fill this rascal up and we'll see if it'll start pumping for me. There, we've got it filled, actually a little overfilled, so we'll be ready to start it up here as soon as I put the cap back on, and we'll see how she goes. So just as I had hoped and expected, it took right off. There was a little bit of air came out at the beginning, but now everything is flowing very nicely, and it's quite quiet. I'll shut up here for a second so you can hear it. The only noise is coming actually from the little spray bar. So cool. So now I'll get my gear together and we'll take some water tests, see what the heck we got. So you probably don't have this elaborate a test equipment, and I wouldn't really recommend that you do. The API Master Test Kit is a real good choice, and I think anybody who's going to keep fish really needs one. I know you can run down to PetSmart and have them test the water, but that's probably more of a opportunity for them to try to sell you some screwball chemicals. So you'd be better off probably if you learn how to do your own tests. and it's not that difficult. Unfortunately, API doesn't make their professional test kit anymore, which is what this one is. And the other unfortunate thing is in the universal one now, it looks like they ship a wide range pH reagent. So once you use that up, I would suggest you either get the regular pH reagent, which will go down to lower pHs, and then high range if that's the kind of water you're trying to keep, one or the other. I don't think you probably need both of them, but they'll give you a little better graduation than the wide range one. So this is just a pH test kit, hot test instrument. It works kind of the same way as the API, instead of comparing the color of the liquid with your eye against a little test strip. This does that same sort of thing optically. And then nitrite and nitrate. So I got these mainly especially for nitrate reading with the API. Now hopefully you'll be able to keep your nitrates fairly low. But boy, once you get over 40, it's just another slight different change of red, so it's pretty hard to tell exactly what you got. And a little bit the same way with the nitrite. The ammonia I didn't bother to invest in because that's pretty straightforward. You can get pretty good readings, and hopefully you never see anything that's very green, so you shouldn't have any issues. So anyways, I'll get my test samples going here. This is kind of a 2-for-1. It's the initial test for our whiz-bang new upgraded filter. And it also, I took that water out of the QT tank, and I needed to take the readings on that anyway. It's been some time since I have, so that will also serve that purpose. So hopefully, everything tests out pretty well. Not sure, well, I'm fairly certain the nitrates will probably still be fairly high because I'm not really doing much to counteract those at this point, but hopefully they've come down a little bit. We've got the Masuro RO unit running on that as well for some time, so I'm expecting the KH and GH to be fairly low. I'd love to see the pH coming down a bit from what it typically runs in the mid-8s, but we'll see. That's the whole point of testing the water. And of course, it isn't like you got to test it all the time. I'd recommend you probably test about once a month, or most importantly, if you see something going wrong with a fish, or most importantly, if you're doing something screwy like adding biohome or whatever, or changing your filtration system or whatever to your tank at any time. It's always good to take a test right after that to see that, and then probably frequently after that for a little while, just to make sure everything is settled down nicely before you go back to your monthly regimen. So when reading the API test kit, you want to put the vial right up next to the card and on the white section, and then compare the color that's basically shown against the white against the sample on your left there. So if you look at this in here indoors in relatively dim light, it looks like there's some ammonia there, but in reality, I read it in the sunlight, which is also what you'd hope to be able to do. If you've got any sun at all, that's where you like to take the reading. Otherwise, get the best lighting you possibly can, preferably natural lighting. And anyway, outside in the sunlight, it's a brilliant yellow. So the ammonia reads out at 0, which is obviously what we want to see. For now, hopefully, once we start adding some food to the tank, we'll see ammonia going up for a few days, and then we'll hopefully see some nitrate coming on, and then gradually that'll go away. Now, just as I was hoping, my pH is down in the lower 7s. That's really nice. I wouldn't mind seeing 7, but 7.3 is great. I'm used to years and years of 8.4, 8.5. And over here, these rascals are counting down The nitrate test is almost there. This one here, the nitrite test, has got quite a ways to go. It goes for 15 minutes, whereas the nitrate test only goes for 5 minutes, I believe, and is almost complete. So we'll get that reading here in just a second. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and record those readings for the quarantine tank. So the nitrate reading completed, and we can see here it's 16.3, which is significantly better than what it used to be, up around 200. So I'm pleased to see that. It's down a little bit from the last reading, up a little bit from the reading before that. So it's hanging in there in that range, which I don't mind at all. I wouldn't mind it being lower, but that's certainly a vast improvement over what it used to be. So while we're waiting for the nitrite test to complete, we check the KH and the GH, and the KH came out at 2 drops and the GH at 3 drops, which is just about exactly what I wanted to see. So I'm real happy with that. The old Masuro's cooking with scale gas these days. And TDS, as you can see on the meter, is 68. I'm not positive how close that is to the TDS reading. Let me look. 3 drops is 53.7, and this is reading 68. So that's kind of normally what I expect to see between the general hardness and the TDS. Fairly close, but not exact. And I think I just heard the beep from the nitrite, so we'll swing over here quick. And it is coming up. Woohoo, baby. 0.16. So again, not 0, but then it really never is in reality. So that's a real nice low reading. So super happy to see that. Get all this stuff recorded. And then we'll dig up a little food for that tank, see if we can get something going on over there. And this phase will be well underway. Stay tuned for future developments. Hope you all stay safe and happy fish keeping.